If open access publishing was supposed to democratize science, then why are so many editors resigning en masse from these types of journals, pointing at unethical practices? What's wrong with open science? To understand that, let's remind ourselves of the relationship between researchers and publishers. I recently talked with Shiva Asma from Fancy Comma about the antitrust class action lawsuit against 6 large academic publishers. The lawsuit charges the academic publishers for not compensating scholars for their services, avoiding competitions at the expense of researchers, and restricting researchers from sharing their findings. But here's the thing. Scientists have known for a long time that the publishing industry has exploited the goodwill of researchers and the public's interest in science, from an ingrained publish or perish mentality, forcing researchers to run the hamster wheel, where we constantly and almost unconditionally chase new publications. The thing is that we've reminded ourselves that we need this system to publish more and land high-impact articles. It keeps science going. Think about it. Most academic publishers are private, for-profit enterprises and report large profit margins, typically around 40%, which is higher than other industries. So they reap the fruits of tax-funded research and free workforce from research institutions. It's a brilliant business model, if you ask me. Impressive, actually. Many journals charge high prices for subscriptions or individual articles, which restricts science access to the few who can afford it. Publishers even own the results, requiring authors to transfer copyright through exclusive publishing agreements. It's a rooted relationship covered by contradictions and lack of transparency, which slows scientific advancements. But scientists have started taking action against the publication system for a fairer and more open distribution of scientific knowledge. These actions involve lawsuits, free community-driven preprint repositories such as arXiv or bioRxiv, and mass resignations from academic journals. But another initiative or movement has also emerged: open access publishing. Open access options make scientific knowledge more accessible to the readers, for example by avoiding paywalls, and they've gained a lot of popularity since the 90s. Large academic publishers such as Elsevier and Springer Nature resisted this movement at first, but they eventually adapted. They realized the growing trend and started offering open access journals by the early 2010s. Partly, this changed approach was caused by public and academic pressure, but also, of course, the potential for maintaining market relevance. Shiva highlighted a case in which the editorial board of Elsevier's open access journal, Neuroimage, decided to resign and start their own open access journal. And similar initiatives have been gaining tractions in the last decades or so, often in response to unfair pricing strategies. Editors are leaving the very system that was supposed to open science. What's going on here? To answer that question, we first need to understand the open access business model. You see, if the readers don't pay for the articles, someone else must cover the expenses. And in the case of for-profits, the revenues as well. But who pays? Open access journals primarily apply one of 4 sub-models to maintain scientific articles accessible to readers. In the gold model, the authors pay article processing charges, so-called APCs, which can vary a lot depending on the publisher or journal. But these APCs ensure the readers have free access. In the green model, the authors archive a free, non-peer-reviewed version for their manuscripts in public repositories like arXiv or bioRxiv. And then you have the hybrid model, where journals allow authors to pay APCs to make individual articles freely available. So you have the choice. And then in the bronze model, which is a little bit less common, articles are temporarily free but later restricted, so the option lacks a long-term open access license. Gold is easily the most common of these submodels. It constituted 38% of all scholarly contents in 2023. Now, the strength of this model is that it reliably offers free access to research articles, but the weakness is that it requires the author's financial contribution. Because regardless of how much publishers try to follow the trends for democratizing science, at the end, for-profit publishers will try to collect their profits for the shareholders. This brings us back to the latest mass resignations, including editors from Elsevier's Neuroimage and other publishers. Open access journals charge different article processing charges, or APCs, depending on the journal's size, the volume of manuscripts sent for review, and impact factor. Now, many resigning editors claim that they leave because of the publisher's unethical nature and excessively high article processing charges. Because these charges can range from $1,000 to $12,000, which becomes extra problematic for poorer labs, for example, in poor countries. The resigning editors at Neuroimage, they argued that the fees don't reflect the direct article costs. They say that the publishers are profiting from science they didn't fund. These mass resignations reflect a contradiction between for-profit publishers and journals on the one hand, and authors and the public's interest on the other. The co-founder of Retraction Watch, Ivan Oransky, put it quite simply to nature. You have publishers, most of them are for profit, that demand and require constant growth because that's what the stock market requires. You have researchers, academics, or editors, for the most part, who champion quality and maybe depth and time to review. Mass resignations like these open up the way for new alternatives to tackle these contradictions. Many resigning editors have started alternative non-profit channels. They've created a more affordable and ethical publishing model. Some have chosen to lower the author's APC, and others have approached it slightly differently by implementing a so-called diamond open access model, where neither the authors nor the readers pay for the articles. This works because most of these diamond open access journals belong to universities, other academic institutions, public communities, government agencies, or just individuals. The point here is that the publishing process has long been a controversial topic in academic environments. Most researchers have felt powerless to change a now rooted publication system which research depends on, but for-profit publishers ultimately really benefit from. I remember as a researcher, we scoffed at the publication system and thought, this is bullshit. But ultimately, we went along with it. I think it's cool that editors and other academics are now taking purposeful steps towards improving the author's conditions and open access to benefit science and the public, not the shareholders. Let me know what you think in the comments. What are the best strategies to opening science and keeping the public knowledge and interest in mind? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the thumbs up if you liked the video, and I talk to you next time.